continuous auditing here is we basically have another caveat of technology calling for exceptions, and you issue an opinion if you have no exceptions. And if you have exceptions, you audit following those exceptions. And of course, these days you get a lot of exceptions, so maybe you need to use some rule of exceptional exceptions, like Hussein's dissertation or Youngbaum Kim's dissertation. Okay, but the big difference is here is that instead of going to the traditional written, like for example the Denise show, you actually are going to focus on being called the attention that something is wrong. It's a very different change in methodology. And I have to admit that for the first time in many years, I started to see a few companies talking about, we are not going to conduct the regular audit, we are going to just go in if we see exceptions, which is a big change in thinking. Okay, so you are commenting, and who is doing? You're doing it. So you go there, and I want to hear it. What do you need? Marker? Oh, fancy.
Good morning. The paper I would like to discuss is the feasibility and the economics of continuous assurance. So what is continuous assurance? Well, continuous here means that this service is of high frequency. And the assurance means that this is an independent professional service that improves the information quality and information context for decision makers. And here I have a picture that we could use to differentiate auditing and assurance. Auditing focuses on financial statement information. Attestation focuses on primarily on financial information, and assurance involves any types of information. There are three components in continuous assurance. The first one is capture information continuously. I would say that this step actually is not very difficult to achieve, because in this modern society, the cost of information gathering, data storage, and retrieval is actually low. And the second step is monitor and analyze information. This step is quite different from the traditional auditing. Like here, the picture, in the past, we audit the financial statement information at the end of the year. But now, we use an automated and a real-time monitoring system to conduct the continuous auditing. And the third part is communicating the outcome of the assurance. I think this component is very easy to achieve because now we have lots of information technologies. But my concern of reporting continuously is that maybe the clients actually don't want the continuous reporting because they don't want to have their information being disclosed continuously. They have their concerns. Then let's talk about the demand for continuous assurance. Will there be a need for assuring information with such frequency? Well, my answer is that I think there must be some wishes for continuous assurance because it is very obvious that continuous assurance provides value by improving the quality of the information so that the users of this information can use those information to make their decisions. But the cost is very high. And then in this continuous assurance, litigation risks and also competitive disadvantage due to increased disclosure are concerned by the clients. And there is a fact that actually the demand is unmet. One explanation is that the mistaken belief. For example, in this paper, it says that some even professional people think that 10Q reports are audited, so they don't have a demand for the audited high-frequent financial statement. But actually, 10Q reports are not audited. And another reason is that there may be some alternatives that could use to improve the information quality. For example, the trust from previous experience, warranties, and reputation. And the existence of these alternatives may decrease the demand for continuous assurance. Then, even if there is some demand for continuous assurance, the viability of this service is also affected by the payment infrastructure. And there are two problems in this process. The first one is the arrangement of payment. In a simple case, when there is only a few players on either side, for example, in debt covenant, there is lender and information users on either side, and both of them want this information. So both of them would like to pay for this information, and it's very easy to let them pay. So in this case, it's easy. But when there are multiple parties are involved on the demand side, then this arrangement would become harder. There are lots of questions like, who will pay for this service? How they pay? What is the basis for the payment? And how to arrange multiple players to pay for one service. And another problem is a free riding problem. And there is a very good example in this paper I would like to say here. For example, in a debt covenant, a bank, let's say the bank is A, and other banks know that after the bank A conducts some assurance on some companies, and the bank A doesn't call back the loan to that company, then other banks would know that, the health of this company is good, so they get the information they want, but they don't need to pay for it. So if this always happens, then the result is that no banks would like to pay for such service. And actually, this problem should be solved if we want to make the continuous assurance become common. And another point I would like to say here is the ownership of assurance products. Here's a picture, I just hear some smiles. So the assurees provide information, and then the assurers will improve the quality of information, and then they will make some assurance product. But we could see from this picture that the assurance is actually an overlay of the company's own information source. So I would argue that it is the assurees who determine how the output of the assurance process is used. Then, a very important point, the assurer's independence. From this picture, Professor says that the independence of here is auditor, but here the independence of assurers is very critical to maintain the service value. Because if the assurers actually are not independent, then their assurance won't be credible, and the users of information won't believe the service, and this service actually is not valuable. So independence is very important. According to AICPA, assurance independence is an absence of interest that creates an unacceptable risk of material bias with respect to the quality or context of information that is the subject of an assurance engagement. So independence means that the assurers should not have economic and psychic interest accept their concerns for the quality of information. Comparing to the current auditing, I think the continuous assurance systems may provide greater independence because the system is automated. But it is also stressed in the paper that there is some conflict of independence, because if we want the assurers to provide very good service, then we may need the assurers to involve in the assured system, and this involvement may actually have some detrimental to their independence. So we need to achieve a new balance that on the one hand, we preserve the assurer's independence, and on the other hand, we could allow for the involvement of assurers in the design of the client's system. Then the paper talks about some issues for future research that you could find in the papers. And this is my last slide. And I would like to discuss a question with you guys. And this question actually bothered me a lot when I read this paper. That we know that lots of people get educated and get trained to become auditors. And from this paper, we know maybe there is a trend that actually the automated continuous assurance will become more common in the future. So if this system, the assurance system become automated, then what will be the role of the person as auditors in the future? And will there be any changes to the education for future auditors? For example, now, if you want to be an auditor in the future, you would take CFA exam. You will take financial accounting classes, auditing classes. But if they will do continuous assurance in the future, I think maybe they will get more training about IT. They will get lots of knowledge from computer science. And I would like to hear your opinions. Thank you.
We want to hear the opinion too. Go ahead.
Well, I think the auditor is going to have more of an analytical role, especially like maybe like the staff level, because like when I was an auditor, I had to physically collect the invoices and type in the invoice amount.
Yeah.
Whereas for the computer, if the computer is going to do that, then I have more time to really analyze the discrepancies that I find in the 500 invoices that I had to test.
Yeah. Okay.
First of all, the continuous auditing is only for some processes. Some processes are automated. And they also need auditors to use their knowledge to analyze the something like alarm exceptions. So maybe more development for continuous auditor, more auditors will be needed in the industry, in the professional. So it's not contradictory.
Just adding to his point. So there's the audit process that can be formalized, and some kind of audit process cannot be formalized. So for example, what Andrea just said is to collect numbers and perform analytical procedures, is that part can be automated, and you can just click and get the analytical result. But for some parts, like an interview, the computer cannot do that. So the auditors will perform the interview in the manpower. And also, when you are using your judgment, so computers can only provide auditors with the result, but it does not know what to do with the result. So the auditors will use their judgment to see what will be the next step for the audit work, or how to plan the audit work. It still belongs to the audit man job. So I guess in the future the auditors will be more will have less workload on the lower end work, but have more high level kind of work.
So you think the continuous assurance actually is a supplement, not a replacement of the current auditing services? So, so auditors will be there. They won't be replaced by the system, the technology, right?
Well, there's two questions here. First, continuous auditing, I think it's a totally different concept with the current auditing concept, because one is doing, at the end of the year, one is doing throughout the year. And also the second is, the audits will be always there. They don't need that much computer science knowledge, because these are only the tools they will use. What they need is they can understand the result of analytical analysis.
Actually, regarding to your comment, I think maybe there would be some third party that design the information system, like for assurance provider companies. Like it's not the assurance company who will design the system. Maybe there will be some IT companies who focuses on designing the system.
Yeah, we already have the ACL and Caseware company doing
several. There are others.
Actually, like June says, like the app, she's designing the app.
Yes.
Yeah, but she's not an auditor.
Yeah. I mean, this is actually a very interesting question. It dovetails in several things. One thing is how much of any profession will be replaced by computers. And the answer that in 200 years, it will be completely replaced by computers, most of the jobs. But there is many years in between.
Yes.
Okay, and there's a study, Denise likes to talk about it, by McKinsey, that creates percentages. You've seen this study, correct? Of they have a little circle balls and say CEOs will be replaced by 62%. Accountants and auditors are very low there; they get very replaced. Okay, so that's an interesting set of questions that you have there. And Denise is, I am part of, but she's doing most of the work. There is a paper on that we submitted to the IS Educators Journal, and the whole core of the question is what you're asking here is what should auditors know? Yeah. And the question is the way the Big Four are doing it. E&Y has hundreds of data analysts to help. And what they did in IT audit is they have a separate group, information risk management they call in one of the firms, that does IT audits. And so you are the head of the engagement, and you fill up a questionnaire, and in certain places you either call in a forensic expert or an IT auditor, and I think they're going to have a part there for data analysts. So I think that's the way they are going. But you could easily argue what you position differently is that the auditor needs to know this. Yeah. Or the other thing that you can do is what Paul Burns did at his dissertation. I think he is pretty close to finish, is what we call super apps, whereby you have apps developed by whoever, and the apps incorporate a lot of statistics and analysis. So the auditor really uses it as a black box. He chooses the app, does June days selection of apps domain, and then he gets a response. He doesn't have to understand regression. He doesn't understand clustering. He just uses the outcome of that. And of course, you could easily argue that that's kind of a dumbbell audit, and but on the other hand, you really can expect someone undergraduate in accounting to know a lot of analytic methods, to know a lot of accounting, to know a lot of audit and extrapolation, and to know a lot about IT. You can't. Yeah. And this is actually a dilemma. I am sometime in March, I'm going to visit the CPA exam people, just here close to Princeton. And we are going to be discussing what they should ask in the CPA exam. Remember, I said here in the beginning of the double bind, I teach analytic medicine with my students. Say, is this a CPA exam? I say no, then they lose the interest. And then I talk with the CPA guys, and they say, they don't know it, how can I ask it? always happen. You understand the problem, correct? And they are the so. What I didn't realize that the CPA guys under a lot of pressure to improve the exam in this domain, and the big firms are saying, oh, this data, we need to go out and find data analysts. Why don't our staff knows this? And so that's what we are going to be talking. Except I even invited someone to go with me, Professor Sanello, who directs our professional accounting MBA, to have this discussion. So I think I finally am optimistic we are going to get some motion. And what I'm going to suggest to them is kind of a moving exam, whereby the exam progressively gets much more into the data thing. And I'm going to suggest them something that they would find it horrendous bad idea, is I would suggest that they issue a big table with a lot of questions and their answers, and say that you can't memorize this because you're going to shuffle the answers, but that would kind of give an idea of what can be asked in the exam. So that's what we are thinking. But I want to hear you. So,
do you want me to?
Yeah, just
okay.
your comments on
Yes.
this. I like your approach. It's kind of a Sureshian approach. It's like Suresh would discuss this problem. And I thought it was kind of interesting to see. We discussed a lot this paper with Fred Sudit, who is an economist, like Suresh in one way. And so I kind of liked the way you went about it. And you could see the way I think it talked about Fred Sudit. I might bring Fred Sudit. He retired last year, but he's a real intellectual. And he would have discussed it the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.